have two things going on in my life, at least. One is I work in Cambodia, another one is I work for NGO. While I was in Cambodia, a country somewhere in Asia for most of the Europeans, people always ask this question, why you're in Cambodia? I tell them, Cambodia has the only international tribunal in Asia. I am a lawyer from Asia, therefore I want to work there. It's somewhere near Thailand, somewhere near Vietnam, but in history, it happened something very dreadful, something very, very much still cannot be forgiven today. The atrocities happening from 1975 to 1979 under the Khmer Rouge. After this explanation, this uniqueness of Cambodian tribunal being the only tribunal in Asia, there's also another unique part of this tribunal which has always been forgotten. This tribunal is the only tribunal at that time that is established where the crime took place. Yugoslavia here in The Hague, the crimes were somewhere in Yugoslavia. You have to take a flight 2 hours. The Rwanda tribunal is actually in Tanzania, in Arusha. It's the same case for the Special Court of Sierra Leone, trying the crimes happening in Liberia. What does it mean to have a tribunal outside the country where the atrocity took place? That means you are far from the victims. That means the victims themselves have to travel to see what is happening in the tribunal. And that is a major thing of this Cambodian tribunal because it is in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, and it is embracing the populations there. The court, if you're working there, from time to time, you can see the court is using buses, taking villagers from all over the country to come to see the proceedings. That means a lot to the victims, seeing the proceedings themselves. But also, we're lawyers. We also want to look into the proceedings, how the victims play a role in the legal proceedings. The international criminal justice started from Nuremberg, started from Tokyo, and then went into Yugoslavia, Rwanda. A common feature of this tribunal is that victims don't have an independent role in the participation. They might be represented by the prosecutor, which is a great thing. The prosecutor might bring justice to everyone, including the victims, but the victims don't have an independent role. The Cambodian tribunal, the extraordinary chambers in the Courts of Cambodia, has a unique feature with regards to the victim participation. The victims not only participate, but they can also be a party to the proceedings. The parties to the proceedings are prosecutor and the defendant, of course. Here in the ECCC, you have a civil party, means the victims who are parties. That shows a trend in international justice. We really giving values to the victim participation. It's the same now in the International Criminal Court. The first international court has a role for the victim participation. It's the same in the ECCC, except that ECCC brings, the Cambodian tribunal brings to a new dimension. You can not only participate, but also be a party to the proceedings. I can spend another 10 hours rather than 10 minutes to explain what does it mean to be a party to the proceedings. But today I'm going to spare you all of that. Today I'm going to focus you on some of the factuals or some of the things I have been through, I have observed when I see the victims participate in the proceedings. It first enables the victims. People now understand that victims want to be heard. Being heard is different from asking for prosecution. Most of the victims, no matter how many years you bring to the victim, to the accused, it does not change their life. They are living their life, and the crimes happened so many years before. They want to be heard, simply being heard. And also that's amazing also for the international lawyers, practitioners like us. We are now appreciating the victim participation. That's very different. One is the victim, you can call them indigenous, you can call them local. Another is the international practitioners. trendy, high-level, professional, maybe snobbish. That's different. Everyone can understand the value of the victim participation. That's the signal the tribunal has sent to the world. That's the positive comments, and I really see the value of that. But there are also very much criticism of this. You have an international trial. Inherently, there's a lot of atrocities. Inherently, there's a lot of victims. In Cambodia, the death row was 1.7 million, around 8 million people. That's the death row, how many people died. And imagine how many people suffered. Essentially, all of them. That means if all of them wants to participate, it's not possible for the courts to move with its legal proceedings. Even Cambodia, a poor state, with insufficient experience and knowledge on helping the victim to participate, only 1% of the population knows that they can have a role in the proceedings. Given all that, most of the cases you have hundreds or thousands of victims participating as a civil party in a case. Imagine what that would be for a legal proceeding. You have 500 voices from the victims. You have 2,000 voices from the victims. Some of them are the same, of course. But if every one of them wants to be heard, you're never going to get a verdict if you let this snowball get bigger and bigger. So the court also changes and adapts by imposing lead co-lawyers to supervise and coordinate all the victims. But itself also drags along the proceedings as well, even though it's trying its best. There are other criticisms as well. Remember I told you the death row is 1.7 million. Sorry to mention that number again. That means the majority of the victims suffered did not join the legal proceedings. Of course, the victims, like everyone, they have a right to choose. They choose to join or not to join. But if we're giving a very robust role to the victims who choose to join the legal proceedings, are we depriving something of those who choose not to join? These are the things I don't have an answer. I definitely see every day. I don't have an answer to it. What's the best solution for it? I want to bring it to you to see if you have an opinion on this. But before I do that, I want to show you a picture. Can you put that picture on? Thank you. That's me, of course, in a very hot summer in Cambodia with a red face. On the far left, that's one of the victims I represent. She is an artist, and she worked at the Royal Palace after the regime collapsed. So she's very eloquent, she likes to talk, she likes to be heard. This is a journalist and her interpreter. We're together at the day when the verdict of the case 2/1 was delivered. She was very happy, of course. Many people ask me, how do you feel when you work with the victims? That's a difficult question, I can tell you. I can tell you it's a difficult question, and working with the victims can be difficult. We lawyers, we like to work with smart people. We like to work in a professional setting. We like to be inspired. We like to be challenged. We like to make the working a learning process. But sometimes it's just not the case when you're working with the victims. Why? Because they are victims. They come from a very different perspective. They're in a different country. They have been through something different. We try to understand them, but we just cannot because the experience is not there. Imagine every time I work with her, I have to go through interpreters. Imagine now she's in her 50s, 60s. She has been through all the sufferings. It's so long time ago. She tends to forget. And every time I talk with her, go through her stories, I get something different. How frustrating is that for a lawyer? I had some doubts as well in the proceedings when I'm working with her because of all the difficulties of the special case, working with her, and all the criticisms I shared with you in the victim participations. But on that day, it really made me change my view. She was there, a bunch of international journalists was there. This is a journalist from Hong Kong. She asked questions in English, but she was translating into Chinese. The other journalists from France, from German, everyone's there trying to interview her and other victims alike. Isn't that this very reason we started to have a victim participation? We want them to be heard. with all these difficulties, they are now being heard through the help of the journalists, through the help of interpreters, through the help of lawyers. They are now being heard. And that's the thing, I see the value of the victim participation. With all that, I'll conclude here, and maybe we can talk about that if you have any comments afterwards. Thank you.